Boom. What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video and welcome to another Fragrance First Impressions, this time with the brand new Azzaro Forever Wanted Elixir. That's right. I know in the year 2025, every major fragrance company and house is coming out with an elixir concentration, or in some cases, an elixir absolute. And the House of Azzaro certainly has put themselves in that club just recently by releasing this brand new Forever Wanted Elixir. Now, obviously, this house is kind of known. They have a lot of really popular and successful fragrances. The Most Wanted EDP, the Most Wanted Parfum, even the Most Wanted Parfum Intense are all three fall and wintertime staples for people. I mean, this is a very well-known fragrance house. But we'll be reviewing the elixir concentration tonight to see if it's worth picking up. If it's not, you'll hear my thoughts on it and more. And let's just jump right in with the presentation. So we have here the outside box and presentation. On the front, you have Azzaro Forever Wanted, Azzaro Elixir, 100 ml Parfum, 3.38 fluid ounces. On the top here, you kind of have the same exact gist. On the side, kind of a blank gold slot. On the back is your badge code and your ingredients. And then on the side here, you have Azzaro, life is a celebration. Step into the light and enjoy your moment. It is your time to shine. So that is a very shiny, very gold, and very nice box here from Azzaro. So you just saw a close-up view of the box and outside presentation. But now, let's open up this box and let's see what is inside. Pretty easy opening experience there. And as you can tell, the bottle is absolutely on par with this kind of gold and black theme. An all gold bottle, kind of the same typical styled presentation and bottle style as with all the other Most Wanted fragrances. You got the name of the house here on the bottom, Azzaro. You kind of have this felt kind of line with some I think some different textured items in here right in the middle as it was on the box. And then on top, you have your famous cap, which is kind of magnetic, but also not really. That's a really light feeling cap, so it just kind of snaps into place. But honestly, really nice bottle, really nice box. I know I said on Tuesday with the YSL review, you know, the bottle and the box, it all really doesn't matter that much. The most important thing is the price, the smell, the performance, the longevity, all that stuff. But Azzaro, they decided to definitely make a staple here with their presentation. And I saw this because it's only out in retailers right now. I saw this in a Dillard's. And I promise you it's going to stick out off the shelves more than your Sauvage elixirs or your YSL elixirs, just because of how bright and shiny the box and the packaging and presentation is. And so A+ on their part, and really, really nice stuff here so far. But let's just move forward off of that and let's jump into the price. So as I mentioned, I picked this up from my local Dillard's about a week or so ago and began to wear it and kind of get my first impressions on it, which I'll talk about the smell here in a moment. But I picked this 100 ml size bottle up for $145, which it's not cheap. I'm not going to sit there and act like it was cheap. Actually, far from it. But I believe compared to the other elixir fragrances that have came out recently, I think this is actually one of the cheaper ones on the market. So I know fragrances like JPG's Le Male Elixir and Elixir Absolute, those are both comfortably in the $160 to $170 range. I know Sauvage Elixir was around $180, $185, and even YSL Elixir, I think, is even close to $200 for maybe a 2-ounce bottle. So obviously, elixir fragrances are going to be the most expensive on the market because they're elixirs. They're supposed to have the highest perfume oil concentration. They're supposed to last the longest and project the loudest. That's kind of the known idea with going with an elixir fragrance. But for $145, really not terrible, just comparing it to other designer elixir releases that have came out in the last 2 or 3 years. And so truthfully, The price isn't horrible on this. Obviously, it's not great, but it's not horrible. And if you honestly wait a while, I don't suspect it'll be very long till this hits places like Joma Shop, Fragrance Buy, Fragrance Net, Fragrance.ca. Those kind of discounters, I think this will be right at maybe 120, 125 on there. So it'll go down a little bit in price once it hits discounters, but full retail, $145. Really not terrible for an elixir concentration fragrance. So that's all I got to really say about that. But let's get to the most important part. Let's see how this thing smells. All right, so let's pop this cap off here and let's share some sprays together. I'm gonna move my iPad out of the way so we don't get launched with a fragrance. Not a great atomizer, I'm not even gonna lie. That's almost like a 1 million type atomizer, but it's okay. Okay. This is exactly what I have suspected. So I will give this disclaimer. I smelled this in a Dillard's before I bought it. This is not a blind buy. Sprayed it on a tester strip, even sprayed it on skin, walked around with it on for a while. Probably smelled it for the better part of an hour or an hour and a half, just walking through a Dillard's, smelling all the new fragrances that they had brought into stock. And this was the one that honestly caught my eye out of every single one. One of me and Canyon's good friends, it was his last day working in Dillard's, and so we both wanted to scoop up a new fragrance. And I smelled all the new ones, the new JPG, the new Valentino Extra Dose, Polo 67 EDP, even the new Givenchy, which you might be seeing a review of very soon, so stay tuned for that. But this one really caught my eye because of the opening. Very simple note breakdown, and it is as follows. You get raspberry, cardamom, and leather. That is all. 3 notes, very simple. But the raspberry is absolutely beautifully done in the opening. This is an addictive start to the fragrance. This raspberry, it comes across kind of syrupy, zingy, sweet, fresh, fruity. And truthfully, it's just done in a way that I was going around just smelling this over and over and over while walking around Dillard's. I got a couple whiffs of the raspberry, and I had to keep going back for more just because it was so beautifully done. And I didn't really know I was a big raspberry fan, especially in fragrances, but they executed this opening to a T. Now, the only problem about it is that this raspberry opening lasts a lot longer on the tester strip than it actually does on your skin. When you spray it on skin, the raspberry opening's there for maybe a handful of minutes, and it quickly goes into the mid where cardamom and then eventually leather take over. And so if I'm going to gripe with this fragrance, at least in the opening, it's just simply that the raspberry doesn't last long enough. It can be deceiving if you only spray it on this tester strip because it lasts for quite a while on there. But on skin, the raspberry quickly fades away and you get a blast of cardamom. And then the leather takes over. And once it's there, it doesn't leave for the duration of the fragrance. The leather really is the star of the show. Now, before I drop the raspberry and leave that subject altogether, I will just let you know that this is not an immature raspberry. This is not done in a youthful way. It's not like a cough syrup kind of raspberry. I know it can kind of come across like that sometimes if it's not done well enough. Not cough syrupy, not immature, not headache-inducing or cloying. This is just a really sweet, fresh, zingy raspberry, and it is done in a beautiful way. Honestly, the opening of this fragrance is as good as an opening of a fragrance as I've smelled in a long time. It's fantastic. But as I've said, you get some of that cardamom around the edges of the raspberry. Once both of those leave, it's the leather, and the leather is here, as I've said, throughout the entire lifespan of the fragrance. If you like how the leather is done in here, you will absolutely love the fragrance just because of how leather forward it is. If you don't like how the leather's done, you're probably not going to like this scent. To me, this comes across as like a really smooth, kind of well-rounded leather. I know some people have kind of drawn comparisons to black leather. I don't know if I'd go as far to say that. I guess you could maybe draw those comparisons, but To me, the leather is done really smoothly. It's nice. It's mature, not overly dried up or not overly mature. It's still kind of a sweet, smooth leather. And that raspberry and cardamom both stick around the edges of the leather. But really and truly, it is just a smooth, dense, black leather kind of fragrance once it settles in on your skin. And that's how it is for the entirety of the fragrance. And so while I wish this raspberry opening lasted a longer time, I'm honestly a really big fan of the leather. And disclaimer, I'm not traditionally a huge leather fragrance guy. Something like Tuscan leather or ombre leather, I can appreciate, but I'm not going to be wearing that often. But the leather in here is done really nice. It's kind of done in a more unique way than other leather fragrances are. And I think it's a really versatile, crowd-appealing leather. Some fragrances, it's kind of just for a unique crowd. But between the raspberry and the leather, this stuff is really a hit in terms of smell. But let's kind of segue here into the performance and the longevity. So as you'd expect with the name of the fragrance, this is an elixir concentration. And with elixirs, I think the general bar is to last 12 hours on skin. 11, 12 hours, that's kind of the range we're looking at here. And most fragrances typically clear that. I know Sauvage Elixir, YSL Elixir, Le Male Elixir. I know those fragrances all clear the 12-hour mark, and especially they can last up to several days if you spray them on your skin. The performance and longevity here, it's exactly what you would expect. This gets me about 11, 12 hours on skin. Nothing insane, multiple days on skin and on clothes. Not that kind of beast mode off the charts, but really good longevity, as you'd expect, with a darker, denser, heavier elixir fragrance. As I've said, 11 to 12 hours. Cannot complain there. But I will make this note. Most elixir fragrances not only last a long time, but they also project very well. This is probably one of the weaker projecting elixir fragrances that I've smelled and worn. Now, don't get me wrong. This is not a skin scent. I mean, people don't have to be right up on top of you to smell it. But I only get about a foot, maybe a foot and a quarter of projection within the first couple hours, which is kind of disappointing. I wish it would project a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 feet. But I'm really kind of in the 1 foot to 1.5 foot range, at least with the projection. Longevity's good. Not amazing, but it's very solid for an elixir fragrance. But the projection is really where I'm kind of sad, kind of disappointed. Wish the raspberry lasted longer, but I wish it projected just a little bit more as well. But with that being said, I just spray this maybe a couple sprays more. Maybe I'm in the 5 to 6 spray range, and I go out and that pushes out the fragrance a little more. And so you can always just double up on the atomizer if you don't like how the fragrance is projecting. So overall, very good longevity. Projection is so-so. It's solid, I guess, for an elixir, but not great. But just wanted to make note of that. But let's finally jump here into the seasonality. I would say, with the exception of Acqua di Gio's elixir that they just came out with this year, most elixir releases are going to be for the fall and winter time. I've mentioned Le Male Elixir, Sauvage Elixir, YSL's Elixir, even Invictus Victory Elixir. All of those kind of elixir concentration fragrances are kind of all meant for the fall and winter time, for cooler months, because they're loud, they're sweet, they're heavy, they're dense. And I think with the Most Wanted Elixir, it keeps in that same vein of being a primarily fall and wintertime scent. But I believe the fruitiness and the sweetness from the raspberry might make it a little more versatile than your average elixir fragrance. So no doubt is it fall and wintertime safe. But I also think early spring, maybe in the evening times, March, April, maybe leading into May, you could wear this at night when it gets kind of cooler outside. And call me crazy, I might have to test this out just to see for myself. But I believe if you were smart enough with it, and if the temperature allowed, you could maybe rock 1 or 2 sprays of this on a summer night. Just because the leather isn't done in so much of a dark and kind of dense way as a lot of leather fragrances are. It's more of a smooth, light, kind of freshened up leather. And as I've said with the raspberry, that really helps make this fragrance a little more versatile because you get that fruity, zingy freshness off the top that while it dissipates and while it fades quickly, it still wraps itself around the edges of the leather and around the fragrance, allowing you to maybe wear this between the spring and summertime months if you're just smart about it. But primarily, I think this is going to be fantastic for fall and winter time, daytime or nighttime. Once again, it doesn't really strike me like YSL Le Parfum, the new one. That's mainly an evening time scent. I think day or nighttime you could wear this and you're not really going to offend or upset anybody. And honestly, I would say very solid seasonality just for an elixir fragrance. Not perfect, certainly not as versatile, as Acre de Jo's elixir. But you can maybe get 3, maybe 4 seasons out of this if you're really smart with it. So that's kind of my observations from wearing this, especially in the middle of March now here in the U.S. And it still works for me just fine. So take with that what you wish, but that's kind of where we're at with the seasonality. And I believe that is all for our fragrance review here. Hope you guys enjoyed this first impressions of the new Azzaro Forever Wanted Elixir. Drop down in the comments section below what your thoughts are on this fragrance, or if you're looking forward to picking it up and getting your hands on it. And drop down any other fragrances that you think myself or Canyon should purchase or blind buy just for future review. We'll have plenty more fragrance, golf, devotional content coming out very soon, so you don't want to miss that. I'd encourage you to subscribe if you haven't already. We're on that road to 2.5K, and I'll see you all in the next video. God bless.